We have a critical intelligence update regarding the ongoing search for 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie. The subject in question is the mother of NBC's Savannah Guthrie. From the initial breach, we have scrutinized the systemic failures and paralyzed leadership of Pima County Sheriff Christopher Nanos. The local population has reached its breaking point. 47 days have passed. Observe closely, for this is no mere lapse, nor is it two. This is a documented pathology spanning decades, buried within federal filings and public archives. It was hiding in the open, even as Nancy Guthrie vanished into the shadows. A formal recall petition against Sheriff Nanos was officially logged on March 12th, verified by the Pima County Elections Department. By the time this briefing concludes, you will grasp the motive behind this filing and the psychological climate of fear that silenced those who knew him best. Let us examine the evidence. When Nancy Guthrie disappeared on the night of January 31st, Nanos assumed total control. He saturated the airwaves, appearing on NBC and The Today Show, maintaining a constant media presence. 47 days later, the tally remained zero. No arrests, no named suspects, and no verified proof of life. Former FBI Special Agent Nicole Parker echoed the hushed concerns circulating within the investigative community. From the onset, the sheriff's office followed a pattern of issuing statements only to retract and contradict them. He suggested to NBC Nightly News they understood why the residence was targeted, then retreated from that position, claiming uncertainty after projecting confidence. Two opposing realities, one man, one lens. But the cameras missed the internal rot. The real story was unfolding behind the closed doors of the command center. This is where the timeline becomes particularly disturbing. On day 13, a federal official leaked a significant disclosure to major news outlets simultaneously. Sheriff Nanos was actively obstructing the FBI's access to critical physical evidence in the Guthrie disappearance. This was no rumor. It was a verified federal source speaking on the record to 3 separate organizations. The Bureau had formally requested the transport of a recovered glove and crime scene DNA to the laboratory in Quantico. Nanos refused. He diverted the evidence instead. He routed nearly the entire evidentiary file to a private contract facility located in Florida. According to federal sources, this detour meant the FBI would likely have to restart the forensic analysis from zero. A source within the Bureau described the decision as irrational and fundamentally flawed. Othram, the specialized forensic firm known for solving cold cases, issued a public rebuttal to this tactical error. Their co-founder labeled Nanos's decision as nothing short of devastating for the investigation. She noted that the Quantico facility possesses unmatched capabilities and a streamlined path for advanced genetic analysis. The Florida facility simply lacks the requisite sophistication. The private lab utilizes a destructive testing method. Once processed, the physical evidence is permanently eradicated. A federal official informed Reuters that this outsourcing effectively locked the FBI out, intentionally slowing the investigation. It compromises the timeline of a case where every passing second increases the risk of a cold trail. That was day 13. We are now at day 47. Withholding evidence was only the beginning. The Guthrie residence was released before the forensic sweep was even completed. Journalists were permitted to approach the threshold of the primary scene. Photographic evidence of blood was circulating in the media while investigators were still purportedly on site. Legal analysts have categorized the scene as catastrophically contaminated, a failure that can dismantle a future prosecution. Eventually, even Nanos was forced to concede the error. During a February briefing, he admitted on camera that he should have maintained the scene's integrity longer. He expressed regret for not requesting federal assets earlier. That admission was 47 days ago. Then, I uncovered a specific detail that changes the entire psychological profile of this investigation. Intelligence reports confirmed that the pilot responsible for the Pima County Sheriff's Department thermal imaging sweeps the very aircraft tasked with scouring the terrain the moment she vanished. Following a clash of egos, Nanos didn't just discipline a subordinate. He scrubbed them from the elite ranks and relegated them to the isolation of street patrol. This was no administrative coincidence. It was a surgical strike, a clear warning to anyone who dared to challenge the sheriff's personal authority. When Nancy Guthrie's life hung in the balance, the very wings meant to save her remained clipped. The search aircraft sat paralyzed for 3 agonizing hours after her disappearance was logged. 3 hours. A source deep within the department's infrastructure put it bluntly. In the high-stakes recovery of a vulnerable adult, 3 hours is a lifetime. These allegations aren't whispers, they are on the record. The Pima County Deputies Organization validated this timeline directly to investigative reporters. They went further, revealing they had formally registered their dissent against the reassignment when it first occurred. It is part of a disturbing pattern of attrition. Late last year, the department's premier search and rescue expert was liquidated from the unit and sent to patrol, leaving a vacuum where there should have been a leader. This internal purging left critical divisions, skeletal and unprepared, just as one of the most high-stakes disappearances in the county's history began to unfold. The deeper we dig, the more the psychological profile of this leadership begins to unravel. It gets darker. By late February, a specialized nonprofit, the United Cajun Navy, delivered a comprehensive 41-page tactical proposal to Sheriff Nanos' desk. This was not some casual outreach or a digital footnote. It was 41 pages of strategic operational data. The document laid out a sophisticated grid search, offering elite canine teams and high-end thermal drones to scour the unforgiving Catalina foothills where Nancy was last tracked. They offered total cooperation, surrendering all command to the sheriff's office to ensure a unified front. No ego, no independent press, just a silent partner under his thumb. They only wanted to bring her home. Nanos gave them nothing but silence. For nearly a week, the Cajun Navy liaison sat in a Tucson hotel room, wheels up and ready to move, waiting for a signal that never came. When the sheriff's office finally broke their silence, they dismissed the volunteers, claiming the Guthrie search was a job strictly for professionals. They effectively locked out a nationally recognized recovery unit, a group already familiar with the terrain, telling them their expertise was an unwanted intrusion. The backlash from within was swift. Sergeant Aaron Cross, the voice of the deputies' union, did not hold back his assessment of the situation. His logic was cold and undeniable. In a search of this scale, more boots on the ground is the only math that matters. Even the men and women wearing the same badge could not reconcile the sheriff's refusal to accept help. To understand why, you have to look at Sergeant Cross himself. The trajectory of his career reveals the true nature of this administration. As the long-standing president of the Pima County Deputies Organization, Cross represents the heartbeat of the rank and file, the men and women operating under Nanos' shadow. He chose to speak truth to power. And in this department, that kind of transparency comes with a heavy price tag. In May 2024, after Cross critiqued the department's direction on air, Nanos retaliated by launching an internal affairs investigation against him. Cross fought back in the courts, and the department blinked, dropping the investigation into the abyss. But the pressure did not stop. 6 months later, mere weeks before the 2024 election, Nanos forced Cross onto paid administrative leave. The pretext was political. They claimed Cross was campaigning for the sheriff's opponent while dressed in a manner that mimicked a departmental uniform. It was a fabrication. Federal court records later confirmed that Cross was wearing standard civilian attire, not police gear. Now, a second lawsuit is active, this time targeting Nanos for blatant First Amendment violations. The legal battle is still unfolding in the shadows. Step back and look at the psychological landscape of this office. The union representative, the man elected to protect the protectors, was neutralized for exercising his basic rights, silenced and sidelined just as the public was heading to the polls. Nanos' public response was dismissive, almost condescending. He told the media that Aaron Cross was simply being Aaron Cross. He branded his own officer a liar and a manipulator. This is the toxic culture the sheriff has cultivated behind the thin blue line. This is the fractured command structure that has been searching for Nancy Guthrie for 47 days without results. The internal collapse is quantifiable. Retired SWAT commander Bob Kreider highlighted a staggering statistic. 98% of the deputies voted no confidence in their leader. The brain drain is equally alarming. The most senior homicide detective in the entire county is a relative novice. Kreider pointed out that the lead investigator has only 3 years on the job because the seasoned veterans have all fled Nanos' regime. From the moment this case broke, we have scrutinized the systemic failures and the questionable leadership of Sheriff Christopher Nanos in the Guthrie disappearance. It appears the community has finally reached a breaking point, matching the exhaustion of the deputies themselves. Fueled by a cocktail of grief and legitimate fury, Pima County residents are now mobilizing to oust Nanos through a formal recall. Daniel Gutierrez, a congressional candidate and a key figure in this movement, is here to provide the inside perspective. We appreciate your time, sir. The situation in Pima County seems to be deteriorating rapidly. Last week, the force reached a unanimous consensus of no confidence regarding the sheriff's ability to lead. There are also troubling reports emerging about his past, a forced resignation from the El Paso Police Department following a mountain of disciplinary issues. In your view, what was the final psychological fracture that pushed these officers to turn on their commander? The definitive catalyst was the discovery of a falsified professional history, an act of deception that finally compelled them to call for a vote. My observations of these analysts have been consistent for some time, a perspective shaped by my extensive intelligence gathering along the southern perimeter where Pima County meets the border. For 4 consecutive years, narcotics have saturated that region, transported across the line by human mules navigating the terrain with heavy packs. A local landowner named Mr. Chilton, whose property sits directly on that volatile boundary, has been documenting this activity. He has archived 4 years of surveillance footage, capturing thousands of individuals moving illicit cargo and identifying the precise corridors they utilize. He documented the exact timing and shared this strategic intelligence with law enforcement, yet it resulted in only a single arrest. This investigation extends far beyond the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. Her case was merely the final fracture in a system that had already reached its breaking point. We must examine the psychological architecture of Chris Nanos, for the record reveals a narrative he has spent 40 years attempting to bury. Investigative documents obtained by the Arizona Republic confirm that Nanos served with the El Paso Police Department from 1976 through 1982. However, the official credentials presented on the Pima County Sheriff Department website tell a different story. His public profile claimed his tenure in El Paso extended until 1984. 2 years of his life have been surgically removed from his history. We have to ask what occurred during those missing years that required such a thorough scrubbing. Nanos did not depart from El Paso with his reputation intact or his record clean. He resigned under the heavy shadow of termination, a choice between walking away or being fired following a documented history of severe professional misconduct. His file was a catalog of failures, including blatant insubordination and the repeated use of excessive force. The list continued. Unauthorized weapon discharge, off-duty gambling, chronic tardiness, and making credible threats against others. Over 5 years, he faced 26 formal allegations and served 37 days of suspension without pay. When a reporter confronted him with this evidence, his response was telling. He dismissed the inquiry with cold sarcasm, questioning the urgency of the request. He mocked the investigation, suggesting they look into his childhood discipline instead, and labeled the factual inquiry a hit piece. This is the temperament of the man leading the search for Nancy Guthrie when he is confronted with the reality of his own past. Currently, Sheriff Chris Nanos is attempting to manage the fallout. disputing reports that he intentionally misrepresented his professional timeline. The evidence suggests a significant discrepancy between his public claims and the actual employment archives from the start of his career. The sheriff is now attempting to reframe the narrative in a controlled interview. Let us look at how he justifies the inconsistencies. He maintains there was never an intent to mislead the public, portraying the entire controversy as a misunderstanding. He characterizes the 2-year gap as a minor administrative oversight that has since been rectified in his files. The investigation remains focused on his early years in El Paso and the fundamental mismatch between his claims and the cold facts of the record. It is a question of integrity. His public biography extended his time in El Paso to 1984, though the official documents confirm he was gone by 1982. Nanos claims the internal personnel files, those not visible to the public, actually contained the correct dates all along. He pointed to another error regarding his promotion to captain as evidence that these were merely clerical mistakes, not a pattern of deceit. He is banking on the hope that these excuses will negate any accusation that he purposefully curated a false history. He argued that tracking a career spanning 4 decades is a complex task where dates can easily become blurred or forgotten. The timeline is only part of the problem. The reporting also exposes a history of disciplinary issues that Nanos faced during his early tenure with the El Paso police. When questioned about these incidents, the sheriff acknowledged them but dismissed them as the reckless errors of a young officer. He joked that destroying 5 patrol vehicles in just 6 years is simply a way to lose favor with your superiors. He treats his chronic tardiness and failure to report for duty as minor hiccups rather than a fundamental lack of discipline. He claims those early failures shaped him, yet he insists his 40 years in Pima County have been entirely beyond reproach. He maintains that for over 4 decades here, his record has remained spotless, a sharp contrast to his turbulent beginnings. However, the inconsistencies in his resume are minor compared to his conduct under the weight of the law. On December 11, 2025, just 7 weeks before the Guthrie disappearance, Nanos gave a sworn legal deposition. This testimony was part of a legal battle with Sergeant Aaron Cross, the union leader Nanos had attempted to silence by placing him on leave. Under oath, with a court reporter documenting every word, Nanos was faced with a direct, uncompromising question about his past. He was asked if he had ever received a disciplinary action that resulted in a suspension during his entire career. He looked his questioner in the eye and answered, "No." Consider the psychological weight of that lie. 8 disciplinary benchings, 37 days of forfeited pay, and 26 internal affairs probes, all etched into a public record that was accessible to anyone willing to look. His response was a void. Pima County Supervisor Matt Hines stripped away the mask, exposing a man who has inhabited a 43-year deception within this jurisdiction. The objective is clear: his immediate and total removal from office. Then Hines pivoted to a more chilling implication. Every single case Nanos touched during his 4-decade career in Pima County might now be subject to total re-examination. Every file. 43 years of legal history now resting on unstable ground. The board has finalized a meeting for March 24th, just 5 days away, to dissect what Hines characterizes as a legacy of professional fraud and perjury during a sworn deposition. Hines confirmed to the press that he has officially requisitioned Nanos' entire confidential personnel file. The documents remain out of reach. Nanos, through a department mouthpiece, has retreated into a wall of absolute silence. This is the man who spent 47 days on national television promising he was closing in on Nancy Guthrie, yet he's suddenly speechless when confronted with his own lies. Now, consider the detail that surfaced this week. It is the single piece of data that reveals the true state of this man's psyche, while Nancy remains a missing person. The New York Post tracked Nanos' movements across a critical 5-day window, a period where the investigation failed to produce a single arrest or lead. While a federal task force worked the case around the clock and Savannah Guthrie waited for any sign of her mother, his focus was elsewhere. In those 5 days, Nanos was in his office only twice, totaling barely 7 hours. During that same time frame, he prioritized 4 separate trips to the gym, 4 sessions. His department offered no explanation. Let me address the fundamental question everyone is asking. Does removing Nanos actually change the outcome for Nancy Guthrie? Retired FBI Special Agent Maureen O'Connell gave a clinical answer on national news. The investigation's continuity is independent of the sheriff. The Bureau's task force operates from its own headquarters. The hunt for the truth will not collapse just because he is gone. But that answer fails to address the damage already inflicted. A crime scene released before it was fully analyzed is a bell that cannot be unrung. Evidence was diverted to Florida instead of the specialists at Quantico on day 13. Those lost hours are gone forever. A thermal imaging aircraft sat on the tarmac for 3 hours because the only qualified pilot was being disciplined for questioning the sheriff's authority. Those 3 hours are a void in the search. A 41-page tactical plan was left sitting on a desk, and that ground was never searched. Nanos admitted to the failures. The paper trail provides the evidence for everything else. A recall movement now has 500 volunteers mobilizing across the county. It is a bipartisan effort. His own deputies wanted this, but they were paralyzed by the threat of retaliation. It took outsiders to stand up. 120,000 signatures are needed within 120 days. The board convenes on March 24th. The deposition exists. The El Paso files exist. The record of those 8 suspensions is permanent. The history of resigning to avoid termination is a matter of record. None of it fades. Now, remember Nancy Guthrie, a woman who attended Mass every Sunday. She had dinner with her family on a Saturday night and returned home. Her garage door closed behind her. She was inside. She was still alive. At 1:47 a.m., her doorbell camera was manually disconnected. By 2:12 a.m., motion sensors were triggered on the property. At 2:28 a.m., her pacemaker stopped transmitting data to her phone. Her blood was found at her own doorstep. 47 days, no suspects, no proof of life. She was owed a sealed crime scene from the very first minute. She deserved evidence on a plane to Quantico before the sun even rose. She deserved thermal eyes in the sky the moment the 911 call came in, and a sheriff who didn't have to commit perjury to protect his own career. She deserved every resource the state possesses, and she was given absolutely none of it. If you have any information, a vehicle, a voice, a conversation you can't forget, the Bureau's tip line is active. 1-800-CALL-FBI. $1 million for your anonymity. The task force is still on the ground. This investigation is far from over. Somewhere, someone knows exactly what happened to Nancy Guthrie on the night of January 31st. We are not moving on. We will be back. When leadership fails the vulnerable, a lesson in accountability, integrity, and the duty to serve. Nancy Guthrie was 84 years old. She went to Mass every Sunday. She had dinner with her family, came home, and was never seen again. What happened next is not just a missing persons case. It is a masterclass in what happens when those entrusted with power choose ego over duty. A crime scene was released before it was fully examined. Evidence was diverted away from experts who could have analyzed it fastest. Search aircraft sat grounded for 3 critical hours not because of logistics, but because of retaliation. Trained volunteers with 41 pages of tactical plans were turned away in silence. A leader lied under oath about his own disciplinary record. Every minute she remained missing. A decision made out of pride had stolen that minute from her. This is the cost of unchecked leadership. This is why accountability is not optional, it is a moral obligation, especially when lives hang in the balance. The most powerful lesson here is this. Integrity isn't what you claim on a resume. It's what you do when no one is watching and when everything is on the line. Nancy deserved better. So does every community that places its trust in those who take an oath to protect them. Hold your leaders accountable. Demand transparency. Never confuse authority with integrity.